Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 13th live stream from the Misfit Gamer Shooters. Ooh, that's bad. What is going on? Why do I have such... Alright, give me a moment, everybody. I have an echo. That's why. Never mind. Alright, let's try that intro one more time now that I don't have my own echo because I don't have my own Twitch stream on. Alright. Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 13th live stream from the Misfit Gamer Studios. I am your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. Today we're going to be doing not what I originally planned. It kind of seems to be a theme of going on right now. Kage is going to be busy this week, so he is not going to be in the studio, and for that I'm probably going to demote him back to guest star instead of co-host, because now that he's missed too many, he doesn't deserve that, so tough luck. But we are going to continue a little bit discussing our last topic, so we're going to continue talking about the D&D Discord that I was talking about last time, the one that I had made a couple years ago for a friend of mine overseas. We're just going to keep going through some of the ways that I had built that out, some of the things that I had added, going to give some of my own feedback on myself and what I could do better now. And we also have someone from chat, one of our first viewers, Cosmic, is going to share some things that he's been building himself in terms of some magical items. So we're going to take a look at that and see, what we think about those. It's going to be really fun. So join me with that, and let's get going. Let's bring you guys back over here. All right. And let's see. So make them use the notepads. So just was talking with Cosmic right before we started the stream. I'm going to get my lighting situation set up here just a little bit better. That's a little bit drowned out. And... oh, no. All right, I think that's the best we're going to get right now. I really need like another light over this way. Just something that would go up against the wall and give me a little bit more light. When I'm facing the other camera this way, I think it's great. I think this way is just a little bit weird, but we're going to make it work. All right. So let me go ahead and double check a couple of things before we get started. I know we wanted... I need to check my email to see if I have anything to discuss in terms of items. That was a while ago, and no, nothing yet. So I'm going to go ahead and hold off on there. So let's just recap what we've already talked about in terms of the D&D Discord. Excuse me, I have a bit of an allergy today. So last time we discussed essentially the initial setup that I did for the Discord. We kind of walked over just some of the highlights in terms of like, the out of game discussions, the in game discussions, and then I really glossed over a lot of this other stuff because I wanted to kind of save that for later. Once you get into the original, once I had players join, there was, we went over the creation process. I had a couple, like, specialties in here that I had added specifically for this particular run through my through my realm. We went through all the characters, went through some of the specific house rules, and then, of course, I have, my 5e links that everyone, links broken now, but that's where everyone is able to pick up all of the digital copies of everything. So, moving on from that, we are going to take a look here. By the way, Cosmic, did you get my message? I want to make sure that you got that before I do continue, or before I get too far ahead of myself. In terms of continuing with the Discord, awesome, thank you, excellent. I wanted to kind of, obviously this was going to be a Discord, people were going to want to talk and everything else like that, so I did want to specifically assign a out-of-game section, which is just going to be generalizing, all the chit-chat, all of the chatter that's going to happen, sidebarring and getting in the way of gaming, as well as giving an opportunity to better schedule gaming, because, of course, instead of just trying to schedule outside of Discord, this way it would be a lot easier for all the players to, work with them. At the time, I was a lot more free doing this, so it was really easy. I basically was available, most every single day. So if someone just pinged me, I was available. But it was really nice to be able to have a section to where everyone can kind of collaborate and decide when the next gaming session was going to be available. And it was also really cool to see people ping each other when they wanted to do like little duo, sessions instead of waiting for the whole party. All right, so you're just putting the info into the email. Excellent. So once I get that, we'll go over some of that as well. Let me get through the out-of-game stuff, and then we'll move over to some of your magical items. And then depending on how long that takes, then we'll either continue with the Discord or then we'll just move that to the Thursday. So, we're not going to go through a whole lot, too, because we do have some other stuff. But basically, the Players' Lounge was really just that. It was your traditional just common area for everyone to just chit-chat. Thought we were going to, get everything picked up a little bit more, and that's kind of what we were planning. But, back in those days, life got really crazy really quick, and it was just very difficult. But had a lot of fun, just goofing off, a lot of memes, of course. I don't really want to scroll through here too much. Most of it's safe for work, but I honestly don't know, and I really just don't want to start out with a really bad reveal on that. So luckily, all of the other channels should be pretty safe, but this is that one channel I'm not 100% sure I really want to press my luck on. So again, Players Lounge was simply just for coordination and people to do sidebars so it doesn't get in the way of the actual gaming. DM questions was actually one of my favorite sections to be in, just because this was an opportunity for anytime anyone really wanted to understand more about the mechanics of my realm, or press me. Sometimes this happened while we were all gaming and they would just preface it in here because it wasn't pertinent to what they were doing. And then other times they would just randomly think of something throughout their day, and this was an opportunity to kind of just give them the chance to write it down while they were thinking about it and potentially get an answer right then and there. So it was a really cool thing. You've sent that. Excellent. All right. And it pretty much was pretty straightforward. It's really nice when you can give someone and your players like a dedicated channel, and I don't mean that. I mean that both literally and figuratively. I mean not just a channel in terms of a Discord. And it's 3 items. Ooh, that's gonna be fun. So I don't mean just a channel as in a Discord channel, but I mean a channel as in being a DM and being open to answering those questions. I think is vital to not only being in my opinion, being a good DM, but also being a successful DM and having players that are confident and want to come back and play. In my opinion, when I've played in other realms and when the majority of the work and the upkeep and knowledge has been put on the players, it does seem like the longer the game goes, the wider the gap becomes between those who are extremely dedicated to this particular campaign and pretty much everybody else, and then the DM. And the reason I believe that happens a lot of the time is because, yes, we all like the story of D&D and we all put in our own various amounts, but at the same time, the players are relying on the fact that they are playing within a constructed and controlled environment from the DM's point of view. And when the times happen to where they're trying to figure it out, whether it's in the moment or whether it's just in general, and it feels like that is added work or a struggle instead of something that can, in that moment or more immediately, allow them to continue having fun with the game, I think that's where that gap begins. And then the longer things happen, the longer a gaming session goes, the more time that happens in between gaming sessions, I feel like players who aren't as 100% dedicated to that particular storyline do start to feel either left out, or they just start to feel that it's becoming more effort to keep up. And I know that is difficult and can be frustrating for DMs. I personally have never found it to be frustrating. I feel like, truthfully, I've never had a player who asked me the same question over and over and over. I feel like, yes, if I had a player like that, I figure after a while I'd stop answering those questions and start essentially letting in-game, in-game events start to, help me give the lesson that I need to give, which is you need to start taking notes or you need to start doing things. Like, I will do as best I can as the DM, but I too can't remember everything. So there is a fine line and there is a balance between expecting your players to have certain knowledge of themselves, certain knowledge of their items. Like for me, I 100% put the weight of my players' inventory, their build, and their abilities all on them. I am not going to remind them what they can do if they have chosen it previously. The only time I will do that is if it's like a bonus that I've given them, or something that we're currently custom building, or something that I have in my game that's not readily accessible by a book. But if they've built a character and they've chosen a specific feat or a weapon, or they have a specific tack that they've used before, if they don't remember it, I'm not going to go out of my way to remind them unless they're a brand new player. But on the other hand, when it comes to High Point, when it comes to my realm, when it comes to my NPCs, when it comes to the gaming sessions, when it comes to the overall aspect of where they are in their particular story arc and their particular plot within the realm, when it comes to those details, I 100% believe that they should expect me not only to have that information readily available or at least accessible to some degree, but I 100% expect that the expectation is that I'm going to and willing to give that information. I haven't run into too many DMs that struggle with this, but I have run into a couple that seem to struggle with essentially gaming mechanic questions. It's one thing to... most DMs are passionate about their realm, about their story, about their campaign that they've built. Most of them will be happy to talk about that. But I think where I bridge that gap, because of course, that's our bread and butter. That's what we have to talk about. That's what we have to answer questions about. And it is on the players to control their character, control their build, control all of their stuff. But that in between is... the DM is still the rule master. Unless you have and are willing to accept a rules lawyer as a player, or you have someone who pays attention quite often and takes notes very well and can be a quicker reference to even your own set of rules. For me, Kage does that quite a bit because of the way he plays, because of the notes that he takes, and because of the things that he tries. He happens to remember a lot quicker those situations where where he's actually pulled out one of those rules from me that's either a mechanic that's specific to my realm or just something that's obscure in one of the reference books that we don't, that he can reference a lot quicker than me digging through my books because he's tried it before, or he just happens to make reference to that at some point because he does like to play with a lot of stuff. So I think that when it comes to answering questions, especially about the mechanics of the game and just how things work, I definitely would stress that DMs be a lot more lenient and be more open to those questions. If that is a frustration, then I would say be much more upfront when you start your gaming groups and kind of put those boundaries and those guidelines. Let the players know exactly what your expectation is, because there are a lot of people who love this game and are willing to put in a lot of effort, but not everybody approaches this game that way, and it can turn people off and it can become difficult. And again, once that gap starts, it's one thing to just not have a successful session or not have someone want to play, but if you get a gaming group going and that gap begins and it continues to widen, it can hurt the overall gaming session over time, because it may not be noticeable at first, but those continued difficulties will start showing up more and more often. So, long-winded way of just saying that I would suggest DMs be a lot more open to generalized questions, not just the ones about the story and about their world and about their campaign, but be the reference that the players need. And again, you don't need to memorize everything. I certainly never memorize. I can't possibly memorize the majority of the rules that are out there, and it blows my mind how many people do just pull out those rules and know them all. It doesn't work for me that way, but I don't mind referencing them, and I don't mind, I love the fact that we have digital references for most things. I mean, yes, I would love more second edition books so I could have more of my official references. It takes a little bit more time to find official like second edition rulings, and then figure out how to modify those for myself. And with Kage's help, we're slowly building information about my realm, so I should be able to have much more referenceable materials. But again, you don't have to memorize and know everything to at least be willing to answer those questions and work with your players on that. Because again, not everybody wants to, pour through books and read multiple pages. Some people just want the answer, and some people enjoy the fact of the DM narrating a lot of that stuff. I mean, to be fair, I know a lot of players who have outright said that's like, yeah, they can read it, but it's just for their experience, it's better when it comes from the DM or comes from someone who is doing more than just reading it, right? Because it's one thing to be handed something and read it. Not everybody memorizes that way, but when it's put into context, especially from the right person that can actually read well and be well spoken, I think that resonates with players a little bit more. And I think that DMs have an opportunity, other than just reading things directly from the book, being able to put it in your own words, so that particular player is going to be more likely to remember it, or it's your opportunity to give them the info and then tell them right then and there to write it down. And then you could just say, because I'm not going to read that one again to you. I mean, there's a lot of different ways I think it can be approached. Like I said, I don't think it's a rampant problem. I don't think I've run into very many DMs that are really anti-questions. There have been a couple, especially like from some of the random Discord ones I had, where me being a new person coming into a Discord with 20 other people and trying to figure out where I fit in, there were a couple times where the DM just did not seem interested in integrating a new player, even though there was a lot of custom modifications to that particular campaign. So again, it's not as rampant, but I would say that if you find it difficult to answer those questions, either be more communicative and tell your players outright what those boundaries are in terms of what your expectations are for them to do, or use that as an opportunity to make sure that they don't have to ask that question again. Because I really do think that's kind of more or less what the DM's purpose is. It's there to be, to be the reference for the player. And again, I understand the counterpoint to that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's going to agree with that. I just, that's my stance, and that's where I would prefer to go, because I feel like most people, when they assign a DM, and I mean, unless it's a new group of everybody's new, I think a lot of people look up to the DM as someone who has been seasoned in the game, who has a little bit more experience, and who's at least played quite a bit more. So I also think that is just an expectation, not necessarily an expectation I have of DMs, but it is something that, let's face it is an expectation. It is basically a smaller expectation I have, unless I know for a fact that person is not new. If someone is DMing, I do have a higher expectation that person has gamed before, has played as a player for quite some time, and has finally grasped more of that storytelling aspect. Not everybody goes that route. I understand that not everybody can go that route. Not everybody can learn from somebody. Sometimes you just got to pick up the book and go with it. I would just say that I think if people are looking to you to answer those questions, be more open to discussing them. I think that it will make a better gaming group overall if that communication is a lot more open. So let's run through these real quick, because server suggestions, I think there was only 2. Server suggestions was just another way for everybody to add things. Obviously, new aliases, new functionalities, commands that they had learned or had discovered, anything to automate, what we were doing. And pretty much all we ever got was 2. The Bard alias, basically, like Darnell said, basically just helped add to his character being able to do a lot more stuff. And then we added Get Up, because in the game, or in the bot, you're able to apply the prone status to someone. But the problem was, in order to remove a status, it was not a complicated, but it was a weird piece of code, and usually as being the controller of the bot, I had to do it. So by making this alias get up, if someone in combat were able to, use their movement to get up, this alias would just immediately remove that status from them in game, and then it would just allow the bot to move a lot faster. So, fun little thing. I again, one of those things where I think that even outside of something digital like Discord, I think listening to players and getting a little bit of feedback from them is always a good thing. I have played with a lot of DMs who seem to, I don't want to say ignore their players, but they don't seem to view or at least comprehend that the player's experience and their ideas about what can improve that experience are extremely valuable. And it seems like there are DMs who, in their mind, say, oh, they're not having fun. Okay, well, I got other ideas. And it's like, it's good that you have ideas. You should always try your new ideas, but don't always ignore the fact that if your players are the ones not having fun, maybe see what aspects aren't fun, or figure out what they were looking forward to. Because it's one of two things: either they don't like what they currently have, or they want something they don't have. So those are that's a flat out two questions you can ask them, or a single question. If you find that you are a DM with players who are just not quite experiencing what you want, ask, is there something in the game currently that you don't want in there? Like, is there something that is there that you don't want, or is there something that you do want that's missing? Because that will answer a lot in terms of, if someone says, well, yeah, I expected there to be a lot more like dialogue and intrigue, and all we ever do is talk to shop people and the occasional BBEG monologue. So I want to talk to more people. I want to ask more questions. Or someone else could say, yeah, I did not expect so much combat. There's just a lot of combat. Like, it's every gaming session there are 3 fights, and I just feel like all we do is roll dice. Those are great aspects of feedback, because if they're telling you something that you would like to add, or something that you're doing too much of, it's not saying that you're a bad DM. It's just saying that their expectation, or what they came to the table for, isn't quite there, and you don't have to completely change your approach to it, but getting that feedback will let you know at least where those reactions are coming from, and it'll give you opportunities to just slightly alter what you're doing, so you can start to critique that gaming style and allow them to have a lot more fun. Get them more involved and more intrigued, even if it's just like every other gaming session, taking something out and just slightly altering how every other gaming session works, just to give them that sense that it's not going to be absolutely that same consistency. Or, if you have, like I said, like I've talked about in other episodes, if you have an opportunity to do like a solo game or a partial game where not the whole gaming group is there, those are great opportunities, because if you can't, if you don't want to extend your current storyline, if you've gotten that feedback from your players saying, hey, I would like less of this or more of this, those little tiny gaming sessions where only 2 or 3 people showed up, but the whole party can't continue with the story, you can add, or, those are the times that you can do something different and give the players those experiences they were hoping for. Because I can almost guarantee most players, when they want something or want less of something, I don't believe that any of them truly mean that's what they want every gaming session, or they never want to see it again. In my opinion, if someone is there saying, hey, it's good, but we just never talk to anybody, we don't get to have any intrigue and solve do any discovery work or investigation, once every couple gaming sessions, absolutely would help that. It would just change the flow so well for people. And that is something that I think is vital to keeping that gaming group going. I guess you can call them filler gaming sessions, but being able to have gaming sessions where it does break the mold and it gives players a little bit more of what they were expecting, I think can add a lot of spice, to a lot of those campaigns, and help those players that are feeling a little bit left out, or feeling like there's just something more that they want. Now, I think what I'll do next time is go through and see. I need to read through the DM questions and see if there's any specific ones that I really want to call out, because I think that would be a lot of fun, is to go back and see what I answered and then see if there's any changes that I would re-answer this way. So I think that's going to be for next time. I'm going to go ahead and... now that I've kind of gone through that, we will put this off for, again, Thursday. What I want to go ahead and do now is switch over and check out some of these magical items that Cosmic had sent over, and then we're just going to kind of see, what they are, what they would do. I'll just kind of give my critique in terms of how I would approach their use in High Point, and then we'll just kind of go from there, and also get to talk to Cosmic a little bit about his approach and what he's doing with that. So it looks like the satchel is where you want to start. So let me go ahead and pull that one up real quick. Let's see here. Let me get this pulled up. Let's see. Can I get this? Oh, geez. Google Drive has so many pop-ups now. Okay, here we go. I'm going to pop this over here. And then I can now do... Hey, look at that. All right. So let's get into this. I'm really curious to see what you have created. I always love seeing what people have built from the ground up. The one problem I always have with this, I just... See, I need to figure out how better to do chat in the future, because I have noticed a lot of the windows that I pull up just completely whitewash or wash out chat, and that is a problem. I do wish I could change that. It is a shame, but we're gonna have to do this for now. Okay, so unfortunately, chat, until I get better at figuring this stuff out, I'm probably just gonna have to have you kind of disappear up there. That is an absolute shame, but oh well, we're just gonna have to deal with it until I get better. Anyway, so let's see here. So we have the Satchel of Individual Desires. Cosmic says it can also be called the Bag of Mocking. Okay, Satchel of Individual Satchel. Why do I keep saying sack? Okay, let's reset. Satchel of Individual Desires, or a Bag of Mocking. So two completely different names in my opinion. That was great, because I was going in one direction until I read the Bag of Mocking, and then that definitely told me I was already off base. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. So Bag of Mocking. That almost sounds like a cursed item. That almost sounds like just like an unknown cursed item. Which could be interesting if that's like the official name of it. But let's see here. So we have a sentient magic item, similar to a bag of holding, but smaller in size. Crafted by the god of trickery and deceit as a way to find some personal amusement from his mortals. This sentient item can grant people with items. The item itself has some rules, though. Its interior size can perfectly fit a typical brick. Okay, so we're talking about bag of holding, but the typical size, its interior size can perfectly fit a typical brick. Okay. And let's see here. I'm curious, do you particularly have a god of trickery and deceit, or are you referencing a particular one in D&D lore? Just curious. Rarity is rare. Languages... speaks common, but understands all languages. Interesting. So the bag itself, you did say it was sentient, so it's interesting that it only speaks common, but it does understand all languages. That's fascinating. I like that, though. That changes it up quite a bit. You don't really... I haven't seen a lot of items that limit the one-way discussion. Stats. Oh, okay, so it has stats. So 10 stats across the board. All right. Initiative. Last in battle. Okay, so it's always last, but it is sentient, so it technically would have its own abilities, or at least its own desire to take action. It cannot fight. It just watches the fight and spends its action mocking whoever got the lowest hit roll. In a tie, it's based on the intelligence modifier for that character creature. It cannot be targeted. Oh, and it cannot be targeted in battle. That is... So at the end of its turn, it just sits there and pokes fun at whoever just had the lowest roll that round. That is absolutely fantastic. Oh, I could have so much fun running that as a DM, but at the same time, I'd almost just want somebody else to run that as like a semi play-by character. Just oh man. Let's see what we have here. Let's see. It is referencing a D&D version of Loki, but I don't have a custom god that would match that kind of detail. Okay, so those are all its stats before modifiers. So if two people rolled in that one, and one has a +2 and the other has a +6, the creature with the +2 gets mocked. Now, is this like a is this like the bardic ability where they get debuffs, or is it just for RP purposes? Because if it can debuff people, that's also fantastic. I think that would be like hilarious. Let's see. Movement speed is 0 feet, rides on the shoulders or head of a willing party member, so you don't even like wear it on your belt. It has to be on your shoulder or your head. Armor class is infinite, cannot be targeted in battle even with magic missile. Okay. Hit points are infinite, immune to all forms of physical, magical, and elemental damage. Okay, so you can't even banish it. You can't like actually throw it into a portal into another realm to like. So basically, it'll just survive anything. It's just. I mean, granted, created by the god of trickery and deceit. I mean, of course, it's not going to go anywhere. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Actions: mocking players' creatures when they do poorly in combat, based on the player creature with the lowest to hit roll of that round. It is vicious mockery. That's what the word. Thank you. Vicious mockery as a reaction to bad rolls. Infinite uses. So, oh man, it just sits there in vicious mockery, so that just makes it true neutral. So I don't know if you do alignments or not, but that would make it true neutral because it basically just will mock anyone and everyone, even if it's its own teammate. That's absolutely fantastic. Let's see. When this item is acquired by the party, it introduces itself and shares info on what it is. Each party member can put their hand in the flap / mouth of this sentient magic item, as if pulling out an item from a normal bag satchel like item. A white magic circle appears on the wrist of the creature using this item as it reads its thoughts or listens out loud. If the magic circle turns red, then the item requested is denied. If it turns green, the item requested is accepted. It only grants one use per party member. Upon the final use, Sid casts Fireball on itself, incinerating it into a pile of... all of its uses don't have to be used right away. You can save it for when it's really needed and can travel with the party as a familiar-like companion. So the only thing that can kill it is itself, but I'm assuming that's more or less a self-teleportation because it doesn't die. It's just going to go to its new owner. So that's fascinating. So you grab it. It is essentially a true neutral... cursed item, because I mean, other than the fact that it's not required to stay with you, like the other fact that you can get rid of it, yes, it's potentially bad because it could vicious mockery you, but the fact that like any one person in your party, at least, I like the fact that it will like understand who your allies are, because the fact that it's just like a one-time potential of giving you like a really cool object, that I like that, and then it like just kills itself, and then you can't use it anymore. Imagine fighting the BBG and the satchel gets the killing attack with its mocking. Oh man, you fight like a peasant. But why? Oh, that's hilarious. So I'm actually curious. Have you thought about if someone tries to use it as a weapon? Because I think. If you would allow that, I would have to say that if they are the lowest roll in that battle or in that round, trying to use the bag as a weapon, like you should double whatever the vicious mockery like bonus is, like whatever the debuff is, just double it for that person. Because I think if you try to use it and fail, oh man. I don't know, could you use it? I mean, I guess it really would just be like a fist, but the bag would be in front of it, so I don't know if it would really like do anything, but it is magical. So, does it have a damage die? Have you considered a damage die? Maybe I haven't gotten to the damage die yet. Maybe I should just keep reading. How about that? Warning, this is a pocket dimension type item. As such, it is strongly advised to not put this inside another of its kind, a bag of holding, chest of holding, portable hole, or other similar items. I mean, yeah, fair. I always a good warning. Red magic circle. Nothing bad happens when the magic circle turns red, just that whatever item the character is requesting either is too complicated or violates one of the rules listed below. Green magic circle item is granted, and as it starts casting a conjure object spell to generate the requested item. All right, item request rules. So let's see. So your question, like if someone tried to shove the enemy into Sid, I haven't planned for that yet, but I'd say, well, fuck. I mean, the bottoms up. Well, either if they were trying to shove it in, or I mean, I guess if you're just, if you just grab it off your head and you just like, try to whack someone over the head with it, would it do damage? Not necessarily like as in it probably wouldn't do lethal damage. But I'm just curious because if it's a bag big enough for a brick, it probably has a little heft. It probably has a little weight unless it just feels like an empty sack. Because that would also just be hilarious. Just always feels just like... Ooh. What does it look like? So it doesn't bond with the person. It just introduces itself and then decides who that party is and says, until you 3, 4, 5, 6 take an item, I'll stick with you. Can they get rid of it? Is it like actually like a cursed object once it introduces itself? Is that like it attuning with them and saying, until you use me up, you can't get rid of me? Because so many questions. But I still have more to read. Let's see. So, item request rules. No organs, body parts, limbs. I'm assuming that means not for like... Well, I mean, I guess it could mean for, black market purposes. But I'm assuming that means you can't regrow things. So, if someone has lost an arm, or a leg, or anything else like that, you can't make them regrow that. It's not going to revive any lost anything. Curse, but without taking up attunement. Cool. Yeah, makes sense. You cannot request money or gems. You cannot request complex devices, so noted or non-loaded handguns, even if that means if it meets the other requirements. No living creatures. Okay, so you can't just summon things. Gotcha. No magical items, rings, weapons, artifacts, relics, potions. Exception: one magic scroll of a random spell in the player's handbook. Okay, I'm getting the vibes from the trickster god. I like that. No plot-based items unless specific requirements are met. Oh, okay. I'm glad you thought about that. Not that I was really going to say that you shouldn't. I actually really like that you put in no plot-based items, especially if you do have planned out that they are going to need a certain thing to continue. I like that you put it in, but I'm also really, really happy that you're thinking about the potential that it actually might technically be worth it. So that's excellent. That's more or less what I would probably do with it. Requested item cannot be larger than Sid itself. Requested item must be no more than 2.5 pounds in weight. So this really isn't meant to be for magic or armor. This is really meant to be like a pivotal moment. I mean, this could essentially be no plot-based items. So no plot-based items is it wouldn't be able to help you with the main storyline, but I mean, someone could be... I mean, if you needed money to get something done, you could technically go to the local bank, make the thing give you a piece of paper with the code on it, like the vault code, or it could give you the vault key to get you in somewhere. That's fantastic. I mean, yeah, you could get like a dagger or something if you really needed it, but being able to just get any brick size item. So yeah, any item that is helpful, that isn't complicated. So I mean, even if you asked for like, a small like music box or a small treasure box, something that's not officially like complicated, that's there are a lot of potentials for that. Think of Mary Poppins bag, but with the mocking aspect. Interesting. I'm liking this. I'm just... Question, going back to full circle here. When it introduces it and tells them about it, it doesn't tell them... I'm very much assuming it does not tell them it's going to fireball itself at the end, because that has to be like the whole point of doing that, is so they don't realize that they're about to get hit by an AoE. Because other than that and the mocking, no, actually, no. I'm trying to go through the idea of like, is it balanced enough in terms of, does it do enough to warrant coming from like Trickster Demon or like the Trickster God in Deceit? But it does, because being tricky means that you want to give people every reason to keep the bag as long as possible, while also completely hating the fact that they're keeping the bag as long as they need to. That is, it's well done. I'm not mad with this. Interesting. Okay. Let's see. So it doesn't. It's meant to be a surprise that the party somehow form a bond with it due to the one per use party member from the limited uses. They can't use it for infinite food rations, of course. That makes perfect sense too. But yeah, being able to just like, there's so many ways I could. Yeah, that's phenomenal. No, the mocking squirrel from God of War 4. It's like that, but a bag versus a spectral animal. I don't actually, but that sounds hilarious. So I just had a really interesting idea. So I don't know if you would want to add this into your campaign later, like as they're going. But here's a really cool, like plotline device. Something to just kind of make it really like, you know, in the background, is you have this party that meets this bag like really early on in the game, right? Like very early on, one of the first couple gaming sessions, and it tells them what it can do. Like, hey, you know, I'm just gonna hang around, blah blah blah. I'm just a cool bag, but you know, you can always get one item from me. Like, you can only get one item from me if you need it. But you know, he does that whole spiel, but he doesn't tell them about the fireball. And maybe just tell, like, I would even say like, just tell them you only get one item, but then they realize like it's more of the one item per player, and they would have to figure out it's like a cursed item. But it would be really interesting, because if they don't really fully think about all of the rules, like if you do it really well in your introduction speech, how about having it to where right after they meet the bag, like a gaming 2 session later, it turns out like one of the party members, like an NPC party member, goes broke or is killed off. But kind of cliche, but turns into the BBEG. Because what would be really interesting is if they did somehow be able to, like, at the end fight, be able to have the BBEG be the last person to pull an item from it. Like, you know, he's almost going to die, or like he's almost going to kill like TPK the party, or at one point, you know, they just bring the bag out and he's like, I could use that. And then he's the last one to grab an item out of it after, you know, long gaming sessions and long campaign, and everyone's used it. But that's when the fireball happens. That would be fascinating, but that would be also extremely complicated to pull off. Also a little bit cliche with the whole, you know, friend turn foe thing. But again, this is what I think of when I think of new items. But yeah, so far I'm really liking the balance of it. I don't think that it's not really against the party any more than it should be. It makes the party want it. It makes them want to. It doesn't make them necessarily regret having this item, and there is a high enough potential of use that the negative aspects from the curse are well balanced, and you also you've given it enough RP value that it's not just you put on a ring and now you just have a debuff, deal with it. You've put in enough RP value that people are gonna enjoy having that experience, and then, like you said, that surprise at the end when it's finally used up, that could just be, you know, that's just gonna just really like level the whole playing field, in terms of, or not level the playing field, but that it's just really gonna provide a new fascinating element, if and when they do that, whether it's really early on or right near the end game. I really like that aspect. Let's see. So for the reason for the no organs, body parts, or limbs is so if there's a quest to say help a witch make a brew and she needs heart of a demon, It can't autocomplete such a quest. Gotcha. See, I figured that would fall under the no plot-based items. But then again, it depends, I guess, what the setting is, because I guess you don't really, if it's that the witch isn't part of the setting or the main plot line, that wouldn't matter anyway. But it makes more sense, yeah, if you're trying to fully think about all of the limitations and all of this, all of the areas. I mean, it also just works because, I guess, for the trickster demon, it doesn't necessarily have to exactly make sense either. I mean, you can also add a couple arbitrary rules that may or may not ever apply, just for the sake of causing confusion, because it is the deceit demon, or put a rule in there that is either contradictory to itself or means one thing, but it will very easily be mistaken for something else. So you can just kind of let that linger there as a rule, but just know everyone is going to completely misunderstand it, and then maybe finally later down the line when they figure it out, it's one of like those like game changers. I don't know. That might be something that I would add, is either like a red herring in the rules list, or even one that I know for a fact will be misunderstood, and then eventually they can try to work around it. But yeah, so far it makes sense. I can't poke so many holes in it. It works. I mean, it does help that it's created by God too, but I like it for what it is, and I really like what it can add to a campaign. Whether it's really early on or even late game, this can add a lot. The spells, so it can conjure object, 3rd level conjuration, casting time is 1 minute, simple object a creature is thinking of materializes. It can be used like any other like it. And then it has Fireball, 3rd level conjuration, reserved for itself, induced death. It's meant to be a comedy item that lasts for a long time. And that's good. I think you've done well at that. I think that you've added enough reason for them to want to keep it, to look forward to using it, but also have given it that interactive value that will make it a lot more entertaining than just that, oh, we have this thing that we're going to use later. So, yeah, I think so far excellent done on balancing this. So let's see. So we are at the list here. So this item is meant for 3 purposes. Number 1, it is meant to be an item that grants free ammo-based item refills, i.e. arrows, bolts, throw-in star shurikens, throwing knives, darts, and likewise items. Number 2, if an event happens that makes the dungeon campaign progression impossible, such as requiring a key that being lost forever, drop down the bottomless pit, the sensor item can suspend the note plot-based items rule as to make the dungeon campaign impossible to complete. Gotcha. Okay, so you do have the idea that in the event that they basically soft or hard lock themselves in the game or through the campaign for whatever reason, this is your kind of, get out of jail free card. I like that. And then, of course, number 3, simple comic relief. I think that's going to be fantastic. I think that's going to be. I'm really interested to see if how you implement that. Whether it's just, I don't know if you're pretty witty yourself and can just kind of throw quips out there. I don't know if you have like a list that you'll generate, or even have like just audio recordings, like just little clips that you can just hit play on. But that's going to be really interesting. So. When it comes to this first part, so it's meant to be an item that grants free ammo-based item refills. So does that mean that whoever has it also doesn't have to upkeep their ammo? Is that kind of what you're saying, is that outside of the 1 item per player, it also acts as a quiver of holding, essentially? You are witty with puns. That's good. I wish I was. I can think of a couple good ones. Sometimes in the middle of a certain NPC, I can, playing certain NPCs, I can be pretty clever, but... yeah, I would have to pre-plan for something like that to every round. I would absolutely have to have a pre-list, because I would not be able to just every single round. That's a lot. But yeah, I'm really curious because with this first part saying that it's it's an item that grants ammo. I was really just curious. Does that mean that if I have it and I'm the guy carrying it and I am an archer, it's just gonna feed me an arrow every time? In a way, as long as the ammo is normal, nothing like exploding ammo. Yeah, of course. It won't. It's not like a quiver of holding war or an endless quiver where it's just going to generate whatever you put in it. But essentially, it's an easier device to allow for. Yeah, I like that too. I would actually be, I don't know. One more thing that I might throw in there, just because now I understand like the actual added aspect of ammo, I would either add in a percentile roll, like a 1 out of 100, or even just a personal counter that's like every 10 arrows, or just some kind of idea like when they're using the ammo from the bag, there is a chance that upon hitting like the target, it will just like burst into bubbles or confetti or rose petals and just do no damage. Or maybe it'll heal instead of damage them. Like, because again, trickery, since it's giving them free ammo, it would be I think I might add in something to where like maybe I would probably do a percentile roll, and like maybe there's like a 3 to 5% chance that a random effect will happen if an enemy is hit. I think I would do that, just because again, but that would be more not because of the item is lacking that. I want to preface it. It's not because the item is lacking more balance. I would do that because of the god of trickery and deceit in High Point, because of who controls that, and because of if that particular person or if that particular god were to create this particular item, he would throw in the idea of, if I'm going to provide you free ammunition, I'm going to have fun with it. So every now and again, you might get something you don't want. So yeah, I would throw in like 5% chance, maybe 10%. It really just depends on a lot of other factors in terms of when and where this would get dropped. But yeah, 5 to 10% chance of a random effect. That could be it just bursts into bubbles. It could heal the target. It could act as a spell. So it could act as a spell fireball. It could turn the enemy invisible. I would just say, yeah, it could be so much more fun if, because, they would not abuse it, but it is one of those like, hey, I don't have to worry about it, but it would be really funny if they have to like, yeah, once in a while, this may not work out for me. Maybe just an arrow with a suction cup. See, exactly. It just hits the armor and just thunk. It's like, oh, but it would be really funny is if like, again, I know you don't want like specialty stuff or magical stuff, but it would be really funny if those ones, like in that particular case, it was just like it can't now be removed from that armor. It's like permanently like stuck on whatever it hit, like for the suction cup one. Yeah, that would be the only thing I would add. I don't think it needs it. I will say that I think that you've thought of enough ways to use this, and I think that you've thought of enough of the potential ups and downs of it. I would just say that if it worked in High Point, I would add in something of just a little bit more fun, because it is supposed to be comic relief. But yeah, other than that, I really like it. I'm gonna have to say, for me, as a player, I would give this 9 out of 10 high points. I think this would be fantastic to roll with. I think it would be so much fun to have in the party, and I would be always wary of when and how to use it, but I would be always questioning when and if I should be using it, like my one item. As a DM, I think that because of my personal struggles with being witty all the time, I would probably knock it down to a 7 out of 10, just because I would have to make some modifications for it to work for me more. And in my particular realm, not a lot. Again, maybe adding some extra comic relief. I would probably, the Vicious Mockery I would keep. I would just have to work it differently. I wouldn't be able to make it so, it would have to just be, pre-planned or at least somewhat scripted. I would have to have things. But yeah, I think it would be a lot of fun. I don't know how and where I could fit it, so it goes down a little bit because, 10 out of 10 would basically mean I want to steal it. Let's put it that way. But it's fantastic. I would love to play with this. I would love to be a player in a group that had this. I think that is going to make every gaming session so much more interesting. Let's see. Is it the kind of item you would add as a DM? Him, not it. It's a sentient. He is a sentient item, but that might be a technicality. It depends on the sentient item. If he is a he and he needs you to know that, absolutely, that's how that particular entity is going to be. But if it doesn't care, then I think that's on you. I would be interested, like, I could see this of value. So to answer your question, is this the kind of item I would add? Is this the kind of item? Oh, he'll let you know. So yeah, is this the type of item I would add? Absolutely. I add items like this all the time. I have tons of items that are similar to this that I either add just willy-nilly because I'm just constantly thinking of things that I could do. And there's a couple of things that I have added into some of my games. It's not... I like having, like, when I have either a new god take a position in my realm, or if certain triggers happen, through other gaming sessions in my realm, I do like it when gods basically elevate themselves a little bit, so when they kind of take a step up in their duties. So things like this I really like in terms of most of the higher echelon of deities in my realm that have taken seat and taken power, all have something like this. So they all have a some type of item. Like, they have their own personal stuff, they have their own things that they wield, but they always have something that they put out into the mortal realm that is kind of like this. So they all have a personal, like, trinket that could be found, and then they have, like, tiers of them. So they'll have, like, lower end stuff, things like like you would find more commonly for clerics, like smaller magical items. But I really like when I like playing my deities, and I like when they get bored and they want to do that. That's probably where this would come from. In terms of the way that my world works, I would probably add this as if the deity of trickery got bored and just wanted to start playing with the mortals. He would create this and let it out into the world just to see what happens. I think that would be a lot of fun. Yeah, and it's so simple. It's so simple. It just fucking works. So between player and DM score, that will give you an aggregate score of 8 out of 10 high points. So absolutely 2 thumbs up. 8 out of 10 high points. Would play this. Probably would use this in my realm as like a fun little thing for the god to just kind of throw out there and see what would happen. I like it. Let's check out your next one. Do you have a particular one that you want to look at next? You got the Cosminium Jewel, and then you got the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge. Kage. So I think his exact reaction would be, yo, that is dope. I think that's his reaction. I think he'd really like it. I think he actually would have a few different ideas than me. So hopefully next time he's in, we will be able to chat with him because, I think that he would change it up a little bit himself, but I think he would change it up in ways that I wouldn't normally go against. Like, I think, I don't even know. I think something here, I think he would add to in terms of like just how the interaction thing works. And I think he might also change up some of his own rule sets. But next time you catch him in here, remind me and I'll pull this back up and let him go through it. And then you want to do the jewel next. All right. Let's look at this. Cosminium Jewel. A Cosminium Jewel, which is basically a gem inside of another gem, inside of a gem, inside of another gem, between 2 to 5 times 1d4 plus 1 gems inside gems inside gems. Each gem type is different, such as a sapphire inside of an emerald, inside of a ruby, inside of a topaz, inside of a diamond. The outermost gem is always a clear diamond, and at least one other gem can be seen inside. Due to the cloudiness or imperfections of the gem, the additional gems on the inside cannot be seen. So, essentially, you see a diamond that has at least one other, some sort of gem inside, but you can never determine the types, and you can never determine the amount. Okay. Interesting. Is this, before we go, is this a naturally occurring jewel, or is this a created... Is this a conjured jewel? Is it a created jewel? Is it something that would happen naturally in your world that has a process? I'm curious. Let's see. So 1d4 plus 1 gems. So interesting. Okay, so there's just going to be gems inside of gems. So there'll always be at least 3 gems. There'll be the diamond outside, and then there'll be 1 plus... Yeah, so... So let me say... So, yeah. I'm curious if it's natural, if it's created, or if that's going to be read later. And then my other question... You said between 2 and 5 times. So if the outer jewel is always a diamond, is the diamond part of the 1d4 roll? The 1d4 plus 1. Is the diamond the plus 1? So the plus 1 is the diamond exterior, then you're 1d4ing how many interior gems there are? I think that's how that reads. It would be... The plus 1 is the shell, because you said it's always going to be a diamond, and then the 1d4, I guess, would be however many are inside that diamond. Interesting. All right. Let's see. Conjured, created by a cult of alchemists and artificers. The plus 1 is the diamond, so it can be any semi-clear, but it can be any semi-clear gem. Okay, cool. So there's the plus 1 shell, and then anywhere from 1 to 4 more types inside. That's awesome. Okay. Or inside of each other, because it's not multiple gems inside one, it's inside. All right. When a player invokes the magical assistance of this item, fancy way of saying when this item is activated, the outermost gem glows briefly in a color repository of the gem's color for a few seconds, then shatters. A number of selected animals are then summoned in unoccupied spaces within a 30-foot line of sight of the player that activated the item. This item is destroyed when the final use of it is activated. Maybe an opal or oddly clear pearl. Diamond might be easiest, yeah. And it makes sense. And, especially for items like this with such high magic cost, a diamond really helps set the like a minimum cost value. Because usually for items like that, you have to have a certain value essence of it. So having an outer shell of diamond always kind of sets you like at a minimum bar, and then anything you put into it would make it more powerful. So I think having any clear on the outside is a good way of describing it, but I don't think there would be any issue in just holding it down as diamond on the outside just to kind of set a minimum price value, because this thing's got to be a decent size, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be tiny. So, let's see. Non-attunement due to built-in durability use limit. Okay. So in that particular case, so you're saying that when you get this item, let's say I rolled 3. So I have the diamond. Let's say I have a diamond, a ruby, and a sapphire. When I use it the first time, the diamond is going to shatter. And now I'm holding a ruby. And then when I use it again, the ruby will shatter. And then now I'm holding the emerald. That's how I'm reading that in terms of how cool. So every gem is a use, and that's okay. Cool, awesome. And then a number of selected animals will be summoned in unoccupied spaces within a 30-foot line of sight of the player. Let's see. When the item is used for the first time, 8 fey animal creatures with a challenge rating of 1/4 are summoned. 8 fey animal creatures. I am blank. Can you give me an example of a fey animal? I don't know why. Like, I mean, obviously I can name it like regular fey animals, but I'm trying to think of like a 1/4 CR rating fey animal. I am so bad at these things. But luckily we have things like this. Monsters. I know that this has fey. I don't even know what a... Oh, druid maybe? Just based the info from the spell. Okay. So a fey... Okay, so you said 1/4. 8 1/4 CR fey creatures. So that means you are going to get... And I'm assuming you mean... And now, are they going to all be the same, or is it any combination? Because looking at this, just from D&D Beyond, I think you're the one who doesn't like D&D Beyond as much, but it's a quick little way for me to do this. So looking at these, that would mean a blink dog, a mite, a pixie, and a sprite wouldn't work. So you'd be looking at like blink dogs, or I guess a mite. I don't know if there are any others. There's probably others in different books that you could probably look up, but even just a blink dog, even just 8 blink dogs would be fucking devastating. Like, blink dogs are just irritating sometimes, and being able to conjure 8 of them. Oh. Yeah, okay. So that is the first use. 8 fey animal creatures with a challenge rating of 1/4. So you could think of it as like 8 blink dogs, and that would be... Wow, okay. That's just the first use. Okay, so the second use. Okay, so it looks like it's gonna like... So the amount goes down, but the CR goes up. Okay, I kind of like that progression. They are meant to be the same. I can see possibility up to the DM. Yeah, I do like that though. I like the idea of just 8 of the same fake animal creature just appears and helps you out. So the second time the item is used, so this is the bare minimum. You're either gonna. So these are the first 2 that you were always gonna get, because there's always gonna be a shell and there's always gonna be one inside. So whenever these items are created, you will always get at least 8 fey animal creatures of a CR 1/4, and 4 fey animal creatures of a half CR. Okay, and then anything after that is just going to be based on if you have a really good roll when you create it or when you obtain it. So 4 fey animal creatures of a half CR. So what is an example of a half CR fey animal? A Boggle, Darkling, Reflections, Satyr. I don't know if a Satyr would really count. A Shadow. Ooh. Valinor Hound, Valinor Steed. Wow, I don't have it. I need to buy all these books. That's what I need to do one of these days. Actually invest in this so I can actually have more references. Okay, so yeah, I'm liking that. I think that's a good progression for this. Is there a... If I haven't gotten to it, just let me know. But I'm curious if there are use limits to this. Like, can I just summon all of these like back to back to back to back to back, or does it have a cool off period between each shatter? And then when the item is used for a third time, you get 2 of a CR challenge 1, or CR rating of 1. So what is a Fey CR 1? Ooh, so you get like 2 dryads. Okay. Okay. And then if you're lucky enough to get a 4th, a single Fey animal creature with a challenge rating of 2. So let's look at... that's a named creature. I mean, a hobgoblin's I don't know if that's considered an animal, but a hobgoblin, a naiad, sea hag. Okay. Wow, this thing's getting more and more powerful. However, when the item is used for the 5th and final time, so this is the biggest, bestest one you can ever possibly get your hands on, and you've cracked it open, the magical essence changes from conjure animals to conjure elemental. As such, the player can summon either a water, fire, earth, or air elemental with a challenge rating of 5 or lower. Holy crap, what is a CR5? Oh, no, I was looking for CR5. A CR5 elemental. So, like, right off the bat, this is the first one we're going to look at. So let's just say you've gotten the best gem you can. You're coming down and you say, I want to summon this CR5 air elemental. It is a large elemental. It had a 15 AC, 90 hit points. Okay. Yeah, these are... Okay, these are all going to probably be locked. But a dust... You can even get a dust devil. 1590. Okay, yeah, so that's actually not... That's not terrible. Like, that's... I could see why, again... I like the progression here, because to get that particular role set would be just, obviously you have to max out that particular role, and for probably the price it would cost you to get this, and the amount of like work it took to build one. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. Let's see. Real quick, let's see. As a spell reads, so there's a cooldown based on if there is still summon or if the user drops connection. As pure conjure elementals info, it is meant to be an item version of the spells themselves without the cast limitation of the spell scrolls. Gotcha. Okay. So it's not going to be anything additional. So as of right now, I'm liking it so far. I think for me personally, at least in terms of how High Point works, or at least how I DM, so far the only thing I would change up is probably just these first two. I like the two at CR1. I like the single at CR2, and I like the final change up to the CR5. For me, I know me, and I know how I run my combat. This feels very OP. This feels, I mean, granted, it is meant for the players. I'm more thinking of this as like if the big BBEG had it, but even for players to have this, it's very, very powerful. But then again, depending on the campaign, it might work. I think the only thing I would do here is I don't know if I would do 8. Starting out with 8's a lot. Especially for the very first one. I know they're only CR, they're quarter CR, but a lot of the times, and again, I guess it depends on how you run combat, but a lot of times, depending on how you run combat, that many creatures, even at a low CR, can be very overwhelming very quickly, and especially when you're talking about fey animal creatures, like think about blink dogs, the fact that they can teleport and do their attacks or teleport away. I mean, I could be very coordinated with blink dogs and kill a lot of party members. So I would probably knock these two pieces down, but I love the build. I love the structure of it, and I like the idea that this is a progressive thing. I just personally would probably adjust it a little bit downward, but that's because I'm not harsh with my combat, but I definitely, I play the combat the way that those I'm controlling would play it. So if I'm playing an NPC who wants the players dead, that is how I'm playing that combat. That NPC is doing whatever it can and will to kill the players. And if they have a high enough intelligence, I'm going to use the players' tactics against them if my NPC sees it. Because that's the other thing too. I don't ever use information against my players that the NPC wouldn't have. If I haven't actually had a reason to, have like the NPC track them, follow them, or have information on them, the NPC can only use against them what they've seen them use. And if they have a high enough intelligence, they will use anything that the characters have done in that very battle against them. And vice versa. If they're unintelligent, they'll make mistakes or they'll make stupid decisions. But I think in combat, if I were using this against my players, I'd be probably use this a little bit as an OP aspect. And for the players to use, because it's kind of OP, I almost feel like it might be a waste unless they held onto it for far too long. I mean, if this is if it's a later game item, if they're not going to get this until much later in their campaign, I guess then yes, this isn't as OP as it sounds. If it is not necessarily an early game item, but if they're able to just purchase it once they have the money, it could be almost so powerful it's not useful to them. I would say if this is maybe like past level 6, level 7, when they first pick this up, I think it could be a well-balanced item. I think if any earlier or far too much later, and I think it starts to run into usefulness issues, but I'm thinking of that in my particular way. So it may be a different experience, especially the way that you're running your campaign or the way that you run combats. I like the idea of a gem inside of a gem type item. I love that idea. I love the idea that you've packed a gem inside of a gem inside of a gem. Especially with the idea that it was made by both alchemists. I mean, you said it was made by, what is it? Cult of Alchemists and Artificers. That's really cool. I like this idea that artificers and alchemists brought their abilities together to create these really cool ass, basically like, magical grenades essentially, which is really cool. Or I mean, I guess they're Pokeballs for like the things that they're summoning. Yeah, these are really cool. I like these items so far. Just because it seems OP based on the info doesn't mean that it will add in gameplay. Yes, that is absolutely true. It's all up to how the players use it. No, and that's the hard thing is like when I'm looking at this, I know how I would use it as a DM against the players. I know how I would use it. Like when I think of 8 Fey animal creatures at a quarter CR, I don't think of like I'm in combat with them and the NPC has this item and would use it. I try to put it from the perspective of what would a fight against just say 8 blink dogs look like to my players. And that's all I do. Like I don't even think of it in the terms of it's an added aspect of the combat. I just look at how would that go and then turn that around. If I were having them in battle and suddenly 8 blink dogs turned on to their team, how difficult would that be? Because of course it's supposed to turn the tide of the battle, but depending upon where in the campaign and depending on the players and how they use it, when they use it, you're absolutely right. It does not mean that it is overpowered. Again, the setting means everything. In High Point, it would be overpowered, but that is purely based on the way that I would approach combat. So not a knock against you, just more of a different approach that I would create or take. Maybe your party could fight one of the item's creatures, and they use it versus the party as sort of a prototype test run. Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, because it's like. Because I guess anybody could take that too, huh? So I guess they would also have to protect it. Like if they've used it, they have to make sure that nobody else gets their hands on it. Otherwise, it could be turned on them. That'd be interesting. Because you said I think you said there's no attunement, right? It's just basically like a readied spell, item for those. Oh, you know what? So as another idea, what I might do if I were to add this into my realm, I think what I would do is one of like basically a type of BBEG or a type of like just bad guy that the campaign would run into. Essentially what I would probably do is when they arrived or when they were there to fight him, he would pull this item out and use it. And those would be the waves that they would have to fight through to get to him. So they would actually, like, he would do, he would summon, like, the 8 blink dogs. They'd fight him. And then when they all died, like you said, the cooldown would be done. He'd do it again. And they would do all of those fights. So you basically have these fights back to back to back. And then, like, maybe, like, after the second fight, he'd run. So you get a quick rest. And then you have to chase him down. But the idea is after you killed all of these, all of these things, and then you defeat him, when it's all said and done, there's like 3 of them left. And then they would roll. And now they have 3 of these items with a 1d4 plus 1 gem inside. Or 1d4 plus 1 gems, inside gems. And that would be the idea. Like, that's how I would do it. So not suggesting that for you, but how I think this would make the perfect sense to not be overpowered, but also to intro it, would be having a bad guy use it as a defensive. And then after that battle, after defeating him, they gain whatever he had, which would be like, 1d4 of these would be found. And then each of those would get rolled for how many gems are inside of them. All right. I like that. Okay, that was the end of that one. Okay, so last part. If the creature/elementals are summoned using this item, they do not require concentration on the user's part, nor do they require the specific materials. They remain in existence for 1 hour or until their HP reaches 0. Okay, awesome. So, trying to run through anything else. Yeah, I think this could be really cool. I think that this, planted in the right time of the campaign and in the right player's hands, could swing almost any direction. It could be a perfect boon to the entire campaign and just be a game changer without making them too overpowered, or it could be one of those things that they just don't quite understand how to use, and that could also be fun. Just trying to learn how to use it properly and kind of failing along the way. I forgot about the detail. I did make this item years ago. Which detail was that? The last part here, the no concentration. Excuse me. Yeah, so this one's pretty good. So I would say that, yeah, for me, I might change up everything. I might change these two first up. I also, maybe, I think for me, I would probably change up the repetitive fey animal. I love the idea of the conjure elemental as the last idea. I do like the fey animal, but I might even make like those first two, maybe like working up to fey animal. Like maybe the first one is regular animals, like just regular, normal everyday things. The second one would be like maybe a slightly higher tier, then fey animals. Or even like this one would be interesting. Like if you did like 8 regular animals, 4 fey animals, 2 dire animals, and then like a but I mean, you have the CR. You're basing it off the CR. I think the other thing too is because I don't ever use CR in terms of when I make battles or when I look at enemies, that was probably where I would really just alter it, because I would build it based off of either what cult built it and what access they would have, or what influences they would do, or it might even just be random. It might just, I mean, you have the actual CR, but I might even just change it up instead of the CR, just, 8, medium-sized animals, and then 4, like 4 large animals, and then 2 dire animals, and then a fey creature of, a high enough point. And then I think I would still end with this conjure elemental. I love that final, just like, this is the last thing I can use, and it needs to pack the final punch. I really like that. Plus, I like the fact that if you know that it's going to pack that end punch, it's going to be really, really powerful, but you have to use it. Like, you have to go through the other steps. It's not just I can have, this elemental whenever I want. Like, no, you have to use it, but you don't just want to waste the other, you don't want to waste the first 4 summonings just so you can have that elemental. So it really adds that dynamicism of, we want to use it and we do eventually want that big punch, but like, we don't just want to waste these other ones when we don't need it. So I like that. I like that it really plays to, I like that so far both these items that you have really add a lot of interesting dynamic to the game, but also really put it on the players to decide when the best time to use these is going to be. And that's important. I think it's super important for really good magical items like this that aren't just your mundane, like, +1 weapon. I think having a level of unease with using it, not sure when to use it, and really making sure that you think about it instead of just, I can just replace it. I think that you're doing really, really well with these. And that's what's really, like, jiving with me, and me wanting to, like, think of similar ideas, because the fact that these aren't just I know when I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to forget about it until that time, or I can use this in any situation, so I don't know when it's useful. Like, it really, it's going to be a talking point, I think, a lot. Like, if you add this to a campaign, I think it will be a very big talking point. I think this would be one of those things where there's always a debate on when and how it should be used. I think the bag, at a certain point, the satchel of individual desire, I think that also would get to a point where it's a common talking point, not just because it's vicious mockery, not because it's, always there. But I think like meta wise, I think the players would be like, so should I use it? Like, is this the time I need to use my one pull? And same thing with this. It's like, it's that whole, hey, we can use this up to 5 times or up to 3 times, but like, is this really when we need it? But we also, like, don't want to be caught in a situation where we need, that elemental and we can't get to it yet. So yeah, I think it would create a lot of fascinating conversations. I think that you've thought of enough situations to make sure that it doesn't feel overpowered in their hands, but also doesn't feel necessary. I also like that about it too. But neither of these feel necessary for a particular campaign, or like these would be like game breaking if you didn't have them, and they don't feel game breaking if you do have them. They feel right in line with, they would fit into a campaign, but if you lost it or misused it, you're still going to be able to get by, but you're going to regret not holding on to this. And I think that level of like dynamic interaction with a magical item, I think just elevates the gameplay. I think that makes any magical item worth more to the player and therefore makes it more valuable to the DM as a tool to use in your game. So yes, with this one, I would say that just because I would have to work with it a little bit, and I'm not saying it is. I think you're right. I think it's all situational, but I still just have a gut feeling that the first two uses may be a little bit OP. So we're probably gonna give this, but the creativity though, and the fact that you thought through like who creates it, that's gonna give it some bonus points. We're going to drop this one in a 7 out of 10 high points. I think that I would absolutely love to see this used in gameplay. I don't know, unlike the bag, it's not so much I would love to see this in a campaign setting, but I definitely would love to be in the battle that this is used. I would love to be like up here when you get like the 2 Fae or the single Fae of these higher CRs, and even when the elemental comes out, that would be such an interesting either being a player in that battle or even listening to like, you know, the gameplay. That would be fascinating because I would love to see when and how they used it. But as an overall device like the satchel, I feel like it's always going to be a good talking point in a meta concept, but it's always just going to be there in terms of the characters. So yeah, 7 out of 10 high points, excellent item, would like to play with it. Would I use it? Absolutely. Doesn't have to get like the best score for me to use it, but something like this idea of packing a magical item within a magical item or packing spells within spells. I have made a couple different things that allow for like pre-spell casting. Like I do love the concept of building something that allows you to essentially hold a spell and release it when you're ready instead of like, you know, the build up time and the casting time. So having this is such a unique idea of having them nested within each other. I love it. It's so cool. I like the idea that you went with different types of gems, and I don't know if you have plans where it's 1d4 determines the number, and then you roll for each type of gem, and then, oh, you know what? That's also probably what I would do. I would probably do to where when you get one, you roll for how many gems are inside, then you roll for each gem, like you roll for each gem type. And you can get the same gem type over and over, you know. But then I think that the gem type would probably allow me to adjust these a little bit more. So I would have like when it's first used, maybe I would say like the first use limits the type. So maybe like, you know, medium sized or whatever, but then the gem type dictates the particular type of animal. So maybe that's what I would do. I would probably work on it a little bit more myself and make it to where each layer, the layer determines either the number or the difficulty, and then the type of gem does the type of creature, or vice versa. Like the type of gem and the layer, both of those would decide different things, and then that's what gets summoned. That might be the way that I would do it a little bit more, because then you'd also get this like interesting dynamicism, because as you use it, technically it's always getting more powerful, because you're either getting, you know, higher rated, like every layer is like a higher difficulty or a better type, but the gem maybe decides how many, or, you know, the specifics on it. So I would play with that a little bit more. I still think it's a great item. I would love to use something like it. I think items like this are great because they're not too complicated. You're not trying to recreate the wheel here, but you are allowing for a quicker approach to fixing a problem, you know, getting straight to not having to have those spells, not having to have the casting time. You want people to be able to carry these around and have those in their pocket. And it's a really creative way of doing that without recreating the wheel and without having to do some, you know, massive overhaul. And you're not trying to make these do anything special. These are by the book, these spells, these, you know, these summoning spells, the conjurations. Yeah, I think it works. I think it's good. And I think also too, reading this again, the outermost gem glows briefly and then it shatters. I think I would, again, that makes me would want to add more to the type of gem helps dictate what gets summoned. So I would just play with that more myself. All right. We are making good time. We will have just enough time to get to this last one here. So let's get this guy opened up and see what we are dealing with. All right. And the last one of the night, the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge. I'm already liking the names of these, by the way. Like, you are just, like, the naming conventions that you have are really cool. They already intrigue me. Like, every time I've read one of these, it's just like, boom, I'm already intrigued. I want to know what this item is. Like, spot on with that. I even think a lot of the items in the books can really use a new name change, because a lot of the time they just don't spark like my interest in continuing to read, but these do. Of the 3 items, the robe is the only one that needs attunement. Okay. And in the Monday group, one of the party members currently has this item, and so far it has saved their ass a good few times. All right. Well, let's see what this item is, and hopefully you could share with how they got saved. Well, here we go. There was a time where we fought a construct necromancer that used / controlled hundreds of severed hands. Oh, that's creepy as fuck. The character with the robe just happened to have immunity to necrotic damage that day, and just shrugged off its attacks. It was an exciting moment for all of us. I love when it's unexpectedly things like that. Just like, it's one thing to provide them with like a, Deus Ex Machina kind of concept of just like, hey, I'm the DM, I'm not going to let you die here, or giving them an item is going to be OP in the right moment. But I love it when things just happen to work out where you give them something, and the way it just happens, especially like if you have the what is it, the Rod of Wonder, or the Deck of Many. All of those things are great when it just, the RNG just works out perfectly for the scene. Those are those moments I love the most, and that sounds like that's what happens here. So let's check this out. Robe of Accumulative Knowledge. The item type is lightweight armor. It's a robe. The item rarity, it is very rare. I don't think we got... Okay, so we have rare. I don't think we got an item rarity for the jewels, but since they were created, I'm assuming that their rarity is a variable, since you either have to find the people who make them, or you have to find out where they're all stored. But we'll say that this item is very rare. It does require attunement by a spellcaster, so not anybody can use this. Only spellcasters can use this item. The effect grants a 14 armor class, plus wisdom modifier, max of a +3 bonus. So I wonder, well, it is a spellcaster. If the spellcaster has the feat to be able to have, like, heavy armor, would this be able to go on top of heavy armor, and then you'd still get, like, that armor class? I'm assuming that this just, if you are naked, this just grants you an automatic 14. But I don't think it would limit, it shouldn't limit your AC if you're able to wear better armor. Let's see here. So upon attunement, the DM rolls 2d10s, for which 2 elemental damage types are... Okay. So, upon attunement, the DM rolls 2d10s to decide 2 elemental damage types to gain resistance for that day. These resistances get rolled each day at dawn. Okay, so once you get attuned, every day you get 2 elemental types resistance, which goes back to your story that that particular day, one of his types was necrotic damage, and he just rolled through. That's hilarious. That's absolutely fantastic. Then every day at dawn, he gets 2 new rolls and 2 new damage types. Do you re-roll if it's the same damage type, or do you just be like, I mean, depending on how this thing was made or who made it, either I would let them re-roll so it's always 2, or I would say that if it's re-rolled, like if you rolled the same one twice, like it heals you or something. Let's see. Important note: in the event where the DM rolls, obviously, of course. Important note: in the event where the DM rolls the same result on both D10s, this item's 2 resistances become a single immunity to the roll element for that day. Okay, so you just flat out do combine it, and it is a straight immunity, not resistance. Okay. Elemental damage resistance can be chosen among these types based on alphabetical order. Okay, so acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, necrotic, psychic, poison, radiant, or thunder. And then you have them all listed out for the D10 roll. Makes sense. Flavor description. In both cases of 2 resistances or an immunity, an ink flows down the robe in a color reminiscent of the resistance or immunity. Red for fire, black for necrotic, icy blue for cold, etc. The robe is comprised of pages from the spell book. Oh, geez. Can you guys see that? Oh, I don't know if you guys can see. It must be 9:30 because my screen just went, my blue filter turned off. So I have, my screen just started changing color for some reason. That was weird. So let's see. So an ink flows down the robe in a color reminiscent of the resistance or immunity. Red for fire, black for necrotic, blue for cold. The robe is comprised of pages from spell books and tomes and is held together by a mending cantrip. At the start of each day, after the resistances are rolled, the player can do a DC 20 Arcana check on themselves to learn which specific resistances their robe granted them for the day. I'm glad that you pointed out that they don't just get to know that automatically. So let's say, so if you have this item and rolled 3 and 8, you'll have fire and poison resistance. That is interesting. I love this descriptor. I love the fact that it's comprised of pages from a spell book and tomes, and it's like essentially casting mend on itself constantly to just stay together. That's really cool. I like that little like added piece of it. Man, do you have like a specific like, do they have to be of a specific level to attune with this? Because man, like getting your hands on this thing, you can't control it, so you know it's not like uber powerful, but whew, that is 2 resistances or full immunity. So I think this would definitely, for me, I like this. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10 high points. Not because it's bad. I actually really like it. But I'm only going to drop it that extra point or 2 because for me, this is similar to what I was saying with the gems. I think this would be a perfect BBEG or like major NPC magic item that could eventually be obtained by killing the NPC, working for the NPC or something, and then earning it. I don't know, as a magical item, like just in D&D, like just like, you know, being able to say, hey, this is a magical item that exists, that like could be purchased at like a magic store or something, or eventually be created. That's where I would knock it down a little bit. But I love this idea as like someone you meet or someone you're fighting, or even like, you know, the advisor to a BBEG that you may be able to have an opportunity or the option to go and kill or, you know, steal this from. But even saying that this came from a deity, even having like, you know, a deity walk around in this robe and then like being able to again earn it or find it or part of the lore come across this, I do like it. I just don't know if I like it as just a standard magical item. But I will be honest, and I can't say I don't know exactly why. I think it might just be because when I think of having a dual ability to have like elemental resistance, that feels very high powered. Not so much OP high powered, but high powered is in who created it. You know, what level of like, what level of magic put that together? So let's see here. So remember the goddess scales? I do remember the goddess scales and the party getting customized items when they activate. One of the planned items is a buffed version of this using 40 days. 1 is resistance, 2 is immunity, 3 is reflected damage, and 4 is absorb healed by the element into what would have been damaged. That sounds definitely like the godlike version of this, or, you know, an immortal level, or if you had this version and like, you know, that was made by like an apprentice and their master had that one. Like I do, yeah. This is a really cool. I love this. I love the description. I can't get over the idea. I'm like just visualizing this robe of just pages of script in different languages. It is such a cool idea, and that's why I would use this, but I would use it in a way that makes it an item they want to go get, but not something that would just be available. Like, I would absolutely make this a higher tier collectible, or just something that I would use for a higher level NPC. And of course, in High Point, in my realm, and my players can do whatever they want. I think that as an item just for players, I'm not 100% sure I like it in High Point. But as an NPC item that, of course, by nature would be able to be taken by the players, I love it. I love this as an RP aspect. I love this as like a BBEG. Because think about that. Here's what I think of. In terms of the BBEG, because of the way this thing works, simply put, that could add a new dynamic of how and when they go attack the BBEG. Because if they knew that they could go in and attack him, and they knew that he had this weakness, or this weakness as in he had this whole aura that, no one could touch him because he was like immune or resistant to all magic, but it's really like his robe. If you could find out the secret behind it, you could essentially do like little tests and find out what elemental he's rocking that day and come in better prepared. It would be really complicated for the party to do that, but that's where I think I would end up using it I would use this as a puzzle or a tool against the party, not so much something I think I would give the party. But with that being said, as a player, hell yes, I want this. Like, I would absolutely rock this item as a player. This is, again, not OP, but man, this right here, it would just be so nice. It would absolutely be phenomenal to be able to, again, not control, but understand, especially because, especially when you added, where'd you add it? The DC 20 Arcana check. So basically being able to find out what you have, knowing that that's also an option, really does make this a cool item to have. I would absolutely rock this as a player, but as a DM, I would throw it on an NPC. Just because I think it has more use there, and it would be more of a challenge point for the players. Let's see. So maybe have the enemy use it and be lootable item. Absolutely. No, absolutely. 100%. Yes. So when the party attacks the enemy and they say they should have been more effective, what gives, they might explain the robe's effects. Which one of the three do you think is the most unique? In my humble opinion, the most unique. Well, I would have to say that, let's say, so... a funny story on how. We'll end the stream with that story, but let me go ahead and figure out how I would rank these in terms of the most unique. So, I've seen plenty of different types of elemental resistance armors. Especially like this does kind of remind me of, I forget, like the robe of patches or whatever, where it has like the patches that you can like toss off and it does things. Obviously not quite the same, especially with the resistances, but I love it. It is really cool that you get the two. I love the description that it's like all of these pages, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is more of an armor set. So I will probably say that I would put the other two above that one. Now, when we're talking about a jewel within a jewel within a jewel within a jewel that has different held magical summoning properties, that is a hell of an idea. I, off the top of my head, don't know any other normal magical item that has such a progression and a cutoff. Most things that are pretty powerful have cutoffs, and other things can have one or two uses, but not very many things have such a complexity in terms of what you're working up towards being able to use. As with the satchel, it is extremely unique because it isn't just a bag of holding. It does have some unique features. It can replenish your ammo. It does give you a one-time option to basically pull potentially a, life-saving or game-changing item. It does have some funny aspects in terms of killing itself. I do like the vicious mockery, and just it'll target anyone with it. I do like that you thought of the balancing rules. It's definitely a combination of a few things that I like. So, like, has aspects of things that I've seen before, but never in this particular order, which makes it more difficult to decide between a bag of holding that mocks you that if you're the the crappiest player also can be a really good game changer, and is also really just there for comic relief. But to be fair, a jewel that essentially holds multiple spells, because this is what this is. I mean, essentially you could say that this jewel is a wand of 5 spells or something, right? Like a wand of summoning that has 5 different summons, and then that's it. Once its charges are out, it's out. I love the idea. I think it was well crafted. I love the visual, and I again, the fact that you thought about who created it is also just really great for me. I love when people go out that that extra step. But I would have to say that this, although the jewel is, I think, more unique than the robe in terms of its creation, the winner will have to go to the Satchel of Individual Desire, aka the Bag of Mocking. It is the most unique item of the 3. It has a lot of unique characteristics that don't really make it fall into any particular category. It's not quite a bag of holding. It's not quite a bag of everything. It's not quite a full-on cursed item that really hurts the party, but it can go against them very easily. And again, we have all had those nights where there's just bad roll after bad roll. You could really just be getting hit with vicious mockery left and right by this thing, and you might have to retreat from the battle just because it's making fun of you so much. I think the fact that it could literally win a battle or lose a battle for you, the fact that it breaks the tension and will always be that comedic relief, and the fact that you've planned it out to do things that no one would expect it to do, like give you an item, 2.5 pound item that's no bigger than a brick in a time of need. Extremely well done. I don't think there's another item that I've seen like it. And yes, extremely unique. It is probably the most unique, and I think out of all 3, it is probably my favorite. Out of all 3 of these, the Satchel of Individual Desire, if I had to take one, or if I was going to use one in my realm, I think I would use this one. It seems like it's the most fun. It seems like it would be a great opportunity for everybody. The other 2 are really cool, but like I said, with a Robe of Knowledge, Cumulative Knowledge, I would just use that one on an NPC, so it would really just sit there and waiting for someone to run into that NPC. And the Jewel is really good, but again, it's not really interactive. It's something that it's a tool that the players would have in their back pocket and they could pull out when they needed. But I love the fact that this is interactable. It's sentient. It's constantly being used, and it's also constantly on its way out. Like, there is going to be an end game, and it's not just with the party forever, indefinitely. There is a reason when it will go away. So yeah, that's where I think I would rate all of this. So before we go, we'll go ahead and end it here soon, but let's go ahead and check out how the party got the Robe of Accumulative Knowledge. So the party was in the 9 Hells. Oh, that's always a great place to start a story. We were just, perusing the 9 Hells. Thought we'd go camping. Heard it was lovely this time of year. They were trying to stop a war between devils and demons. Why? Just let them fight it out. Who cares? We came across a devil that was a one-on-one black market dealer. Okay. He challenged his party to a mini game where whoever beat him got an item he sells for free. The mini game was rolling 3d8s, trying to get a higher total than the devil. His dice were rigged to get 666 every time. It was a DC 18 challenge using 3d8s rather than... Wait. It was a DC 18 challenge using 3d8s rather than a d20. Okay, no, that's actually a pretty clever way to break that out. Like to make it more of like a dice rolling game, but essentially using a DC check. That's a good way to break it out if you're not trying to make it too RPE, or if you're just trying to make it simple. That's actually a really, really good example of how to simplify games. I hope I remember that next time I'm doing a live stream and we're talking about like how to simplify mechanics and how to make them easier for you to remember and not have to have a laundry list of things to do. Something like that, guys. Something like taking a DC check and being like, well, if it's a DC 18, he's always going to get 18 on his, fake dice roll because he's cheating. So you basically have to roll beyond that. I love that. That's that's a really cool concept. Makes it super simple to remember, and it fits so well with the story. And then the devil wins, and the devil wins when there is a tie. Okay, when a party member loses, they still get the item, but one at double the cost, so they can still get it, but they have to pay double the cost. And two with a minor curse. What is a minor curse? Curious what that is. Because obviously this isn't a cursed item. He is selling legitimate, rare items. And I do like that, again, you're making me feel better about this one because, you had to go to you had to go all the way down to hell to get this one. And the fact that it was a black market dealer, that they had to win it off of him, that's definitely making this much more of a more comfortable item for me, and not so much hey, this is just in a shop that you can buy. I love that there was more to getting this than just it was out in the world. That's really, really good. You don't remember what the curses were. So I'm assuming, did they lose or did they win when they got it? You said you don't remember what the curses were, but I'm assuming that means that they did not get the curses and that they won the dice rolls. But that is, that makes that does knock this up a bit, because the idea that it was essentially such a higher level NPC item really makes it make a lot more sense. And coming from the Nine Hells, having it be this living, self-mending robe of, scrolls and tombs, it just adds to that feature. I'm imagining it with constantly sinned edges that are trying to mend themselves, but because they were from the fires of hell, it can never fix itself. So there's always just singed edges and tiny little whiffs of ash just constantly on the edges of the robe. I could do so much with these things. That's such a cool idea. Only 2 of the 6 party members won. 1 tied, 3 lost. The Cid was mocking them each game. Almost brought the devil to tears when he lost the second time. Oh, that's great. I love it. And again, I love that it wasn't I'm glad that you had it there the whole time instead of just here's an item that you didn't know I had. No, it's been there, just talking shit. I'm sure that demon or that devil was plenty happy to get rid of it. Oh, that is funny. I do like that. No, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing these. These were really fun to go over. If you do create anything else or want me to review anything, I will be happy to read this stuff. This was a lot of fun. I do like them. Satchel of Individual Desire, still my top. I like everything about it. I think it fits in most with High Point out of all of the 3 items. Plus, I just feel like it's good old-fashioned fun with allowing the players to feel like it's very useful over time. So yeah, man, thank you so much. This was so much fun reading those. I think I'm going to call it there. It's been a wonderful 2 hours going over there. Sorry I was late getting this started. I will try to be better on Thursday. I will probably continue with the D&D Discord. Useful and comedic. Very, very, very true. But yeah, so Thursday we're going to continue talking about the Discord. Kage's out all week, so he probably won't be joining me until next Monday, if he's in. And yeah, we'll probably, if you're here, Cosmic, just remind me about these if I don't talk to Kage before then, and we'll sit him down, have him read over them real quick, or at least before the show, and then I'll kind of let him just take the show for a little bit and talk to you about what he thought about them. Because I think he's going to have a lot more, or not more, but he'll have different ideas than I did on how they would relate to his realm and how he would use them as a player. And I really want to talk about that too. I like, not just like giving my opinions, but I also like hearing what people create and then how other people would use it. So join us on Thursday between 7 and 7:30, as long as I'm on time, between 7 and 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Mondays and Thursdays I will be live. Otherwise, have a great rest of your night. Have a wonderful week. Hope everyone had a good weekend, and I will see you guys on Thursday. Cosmic, thanks for joining us today. I will see you later.